Hi everybody, welcome to our Earth Nouveau Hub. We had an exciting week last week because we were looking at Andrew Bartzis' interview he did with Lance White on Our Galactic History. And I find this absolutely fascinating because all of us here know that we haven't been told the truth when it comes to our history of this planet. So the more I read through this, and I think I've never, because I've never seen a transcription of it. So thanks to Sean, who I can't see on the hub at the moment on the Zoom. We now have, I think, 14 transcriptions of the 20 videos that Andrew did with Lance White back in 2013. And they make wonderful reading because for me, there he is, the man himself. For me, reading it really does help to ground it and help me in my understanding. So first of all, I think it's a wonderful resource for us to have this transcriptions that you've done, Sean. So thanks very much for those. And I hope we can continue with those gradually over the weeks. I've just discussed it with Martina. We'll have some breaks in between with other things so we don't get too bogged down, because there's a lot of material in just one session. As we all know, how Andrew's take on things can just lead to something else, and something else becomes uncovered, and we want to look at that. So we will intersperse this with guests and other topics. And again, I think we put it out there if anybody would like anything particularly discussed. And I think you put up something on our Facebook hub, didn't you, Martina, about if anybody had anything they wanted to actually come and talk about themselves. Can't hear you, you're mute.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just like what Andrea did and what Matty did, or if you got anything that you want to share, you want to use it, this is the hub. You can actually also use it if you have a presentation or a workshop somewhere and you just want to proof run it or just have a little trial here, use it, So this is what we're here for. So really, really use it as a study group.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. So our study at the moment is Our Galactic History. And as I say, we're basing it on these interviews that Sean's transcribed, which gives us a great resource for it all. Last week, just to recap, I think we learnt what a galactic historian is. We learnt what the Akashic records are. We learned that Earth is a sentient being. I think we covered a bit on timelines. We certainly covered a bit on ascension. I've got an echo from somebody. Okay. No, still there.
That's it, done now.
Thank you. Oh, well done, Matty. Thank you. Hi, Casey. I'm not sure whether we covered much on the pyramids and the fortifications. I'm hoping you've got some questions for us all today. Anybody has got some questions today? So we can sort of try and wrap up Galactic History 1 today before we move on. So I think we were going to have a look at, read the rest. I think we only did 2 pages last time, didn't we? So we were going to read the rest and then come up with anything we wanted to discuss. So great, I can kick it off because just through reading, there's a couple of things I wasn't totally sure on. Earth has a chakra system because she's a sentient being. And I'd always believed that the heart chakra was at Glastonbury. When I spoke to Andrew once, he said, no, it moves, but I didn't know any more than that. Does anybody know why Earth's heart chakra position moves? Does anybody know anything about the Earth's chakra system?
I just from reading, which highly augments everything that I've read or heard over the last couple decades. But Andrew says there are 200 or 300 womb chakras on Earth. So I think that the obvious thought to me is Earth has multiple heart chakras.
Okay.
Well, if the system, if the planet is the same as, oh, got an echo. If the system's chakras are the same as our systems, then they can be moved. You know, many people can move their chakras around. I myself move mine all down into the heart space. Then when I do different work on people, then I put them back where they need to be in particular order. So I imagine that should any one of her chakras be compromised in any way, shape, or form, she has the ability to move her will. She is a high density being, isn't she?
Yeah. High frequency.
Yes.
Andrew, really?
Would it have anything to do with the rotation? I'm just wondering. I don't know. It's just a question. I wonder, would it have anything to do with that?
Yeah.
Maybe that's one it sounds like it's one we need to ask.
That's an Andrew question.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So having said that, it's an Andrew question. What else can we add to that? Because that's not going to be, you know, if we have womb chakras and heart chakra, do we have other questions for him that we can put it into a little package when it comes, you know, regarding those womb chakras?
Martin,
Yeah, well, go on, Andrea.
sorry, I might be incorrect, but I think David Wood put up a recording just now, and the answer might be in that recording. Okay, it's about the wolf thingy, but there's also some. I just glanced it over, you know, the title. I will listen to it later, but it might be something to do with that. I'm not. Like I said, I might be wrong.
Okay, thanks. If that's the case, then I'll translate it and then send it into the hub if there's something there. I'll find something.
Yeah, maybe we can add to that about the 50 colours of time, because we're 50 colours of time experiencing beings, or we've got that potential. So is that the same for the Earth?
Ooh, that's a big subject.
Yeah, isn't it?
I'm sure it
But
is.
might be one for Andrew too.
But I'd imagine it is. I would imagine that it is the same.
So how would that? Yeah, it would have an impact on the chakras, but it's probably going into a slightly different direction.
I once had a three-way conversation with Andrew and some ETs, and he wanted to see if they could figure out how many colours of time he was operating on, and the answer that we got was 37.
Wow. And we're looking to get to the 8th colour of time.
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay, so the other thing that was highlighted for me in reading back was the unity consciousness drive that he spoke about in Earth. So is that a form of technology that is driven by our belief or by our awakening? Back to the old awakening again.
I can give that a little stab here.
Go on.
The way I understand it, it's a technology of our instrument. It's part of the 20%, and it's a technology that we all have because of our DNA instrument. But also that unity consciousness drive can be a city. Yeah, that there are quite a few cities that have unity consciousness drives, and continents. So for instance, Australia is one of those unity consciousness drives, which means that Australia could basically teleport itself outside of our Earth system onto a different planet, including all the sentience on that continent, to start seeding there, to start working there, to start communicating there. What was the other? I can't remember which other cities. Dar es Salaam? No, I can't remember. But you mentioned a couple of other cities that
in Russia.
Too. No, I can't remember now.
Moscow.
Yeah.
Moscow.
Yeah, Moscow.
Moscow, yes.
I believe he said Tokyo was one of them also.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think he said Tokyo.
Okay.
I add to the Unity Consciousness Drive as well. So the Unity Consciousness Drive is something that kind of, it's like a drive system for the planet, and etheric and official technology, artificial technology. But these drives are also replicated in ships, like planet ships and things like that. So if beings are away from a planet's sentience, from a celestial sentience that they're born into, then they have to have some form of technological unity drive in order to function adequately. So one of the interesting things that was added to that recently was during with the Galactic History 2.0 series. He discussed the fact that the last time the Earth went into retrograde was when the Atlanteans were trying to kickstart or bump start the unity drive in order to raise or lower the consciousness of the planet. That adds a whole nother scope to what a unity drive is.
Yeah. It's like if you liken it to a USB drive, you take a USB drive and you stick it into a computer, and you can download the entire information from that unity drive. The cities here are Kiev, Moscow, Washington, DC, and somewhere in South Africa, which I remember having written down. I don't remember it, obviously. So so Australia has a very unique capability to go into the uncreated, created part. So they can go deeply into dream time of the uncreated universe to see the ideas for our future selves. Depending on the type of mission the continent the continent is doing, it can completely disappear, or let's say it can go to a dying world as a rapidly emergency rescue system. Either teleport the dying parts of the world without any damage to the continent itself, or it can melt with the world on that particular planet, with the mountains, with the oceans and stuff like that. It's a war tool too. And of course, it all happens in dream time, multidimensional dream worlds. So yeah.
Is the Unity Consciousness Drive used for reseeding? Because you were talking about you could take a continent like Australia. So if you took it to a blank Akashic record world, as long as you've got a Unity Consciousness Drive, you can start reseeding on that world.
Yes.
That's what was discussed. That's what was discussed with was talking about, because this does really fit in with the womb chakras as well, because on those areas, that's where life develops and where life is created. And then it's taken, I think he said the process was, it was then holographically taken to the moon, and then it was taken to the planet where it was going to be grafted onto the holographic grafting of that particular planet, and then melded into the reality. We don't really understand dream time, do we? I always have this kind of this idea that on other planets, where you might find planets without moving beings, plant life and so forth, but there could be also a dream world that runs parallel where they can move and interact. I think we're cut off from our dream world here, probably because of systems of
yes,
the unnatural systems on our Earth.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could probably have a whole Zoom on dream time.
And that goes to show the Aborigines' teachings about dream time as well. It puts it more into perspective when you understand those teachings. Yeah,
it's another huge subject. So let's put it out there. Who's read and who finished the first one, the first transcription, and who's got some questions or some thoughts or anything at all that you want to throw in here?
Yeah, that was homework, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I have one if nobody else is going to come forward.
Go on, Mary.
Okay, it's in relation actually to our discussion the last day. So I'm sorry I'm going back to the last day's discussion, but it's just when I was looking at it because I wrote out the questions and we were talking about karma and about how it works and about the archons and all that, the reincarnation grid. But I remember when Andrew was talking about the history of the planet and about the karma that the earth had. And we volunteered to work with earth to work on the karma. So I suppose I'm wondering what would be our connection with the earth because of that. How come we volunteered? Why? What was the contract? All of that. And again, I suppose these are questions, I suppose, for Andrew, really. Unless somebody knows, I don't know.
Well, anyone?
You.
We must have some relation to, you know, previously to the earth.
No, absolutely. Well, we have obviously volunteered to be here because
yes,
yesterday there was 80% ancient souls. We are 80% ancient souls on this.
That's right. Yeah.
20%, you know, medium and very, very few young souls. And obviously the history with our history, our personal history, be that now from the DNA instrument, well, yes, 20% and 80% goes back all those, you know, 54 million years probably, you know. And of course, Indonesia, we can't remember, but these are the contracts that we have with Earth. We are the champions. I don't know what that means, but
I know, I get that. I suppose I'm just wondering, even beyond that, Martina, I'm wondering,
beyond
you know,
the 54 million years.
Yes, what was our initial kind of, you know, when Earth called out, when she was in trouble and she called out and she was really in a bad way, and you know, people, our light sentients came from different parts of the galaxy to help it, but we volunteered with it to work out the karma piece. So we're entangled with Earth in that way, and I'm wondering what was our history because of that. Like, did we just come? Was that the beginning for us when we volunteered to do it, or was there history before that? That's kind of my question.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what, Mary, I think that obviously a lot of this has to do with the timeline genocides and the timeline wars, and the reason that the Galactic Ascension machine was created, all of the timeline pollution and the paradoxes created. But one thing that excites me is, have you heard Andrew speak about the founder beings and the headwaters of the galactic flow and all of that kind of stuff? You know, one of the things that from my dreams and some of the things that I've gleaned, this has been going on for a very long time, and some of those previous civilizations that we touched upon before, I think some of those are the civilizations with the creator beings, where they, with, you know, the original beings, where Andrew talks about us being their iPhones. And I have these memories of the rebellions. So I discussed it with Andrew on the show the other day, of these memories of the rebellions that were created. And Andrew was very, very much in that. And all of us guys would have been a part of that stuff. And when I look at it, I kind of see that maybe we actually were founder beings, you know, especially a lot of us at this point that are the ones that seem to be awakening ahead of the main herd. You know, a lot of us seem to be entangled to that kind of level where we were founder beings. And then there were fake founder beings, and then, you know, we had many different expressions on Earth.
Yes, that feels right with me too, Matty. That resonates,
Because when you think about it, you can even expand that and really, you know, consider yourself a fractal of the prime creator. Yeah, it really depends, obviously, on the age of the soul, how many times you've been round, in and out, in and out, in and out. Now, if you think of the slave species, the humans on this planet in Sumerian times, or when look at the story of the Anunnaki. Yeah? They came with their, you know, free roaming galactic, you know, planet ships. They literally, you know, there was nobody on the planet at the time, because, you know, 600,000 years ago there was ice, there was nothing. But they came shortly after that. They came 480,000 years ago or something, and they started actually mining and working Earth. And they did that for themselves because there was nobody else around at the time. And then they realized, actually, this is fucking hard work. Let's do something. And they started genetically engineering what what the Neanderthals at the time, before that, the ape and all of that. And that was all. And then there was this huge, you know, intermingling, you know, with earthlings and gods and, you know, creating offspring and all of that, you know. But that is actually just almost, if you talk about like 300,000 years ago, you know, that's the new species, if you want to talk about it.
Yes.
But we were part of that too, because we all lived in the Sumerian times, right?
Yes.
If you start
yes,
thinking about
yes.
Sumerian times, like 3,000-4,000 BC, you said, oh shit, yeah, definitely been there, done this, you know. But it's this ever-growing evolution and the continuous genetic engineering, be that now through natural offspring, or be that now through DNA farming and forced evolution. So yes.
Can I answer a question, Martina? Lana asked what a founder being is. And so a founder being, in my understanding, is a creator being. And I don't know what kind of dimensions we're talking here, but these are the kind of beings that build the structure that we see as the actual universe around us. And so, like, you know, it's done exactly the same as we would build a house. All of the materials needed are gathered, set into an area, and then these beings literally create planets, solar systems, galaxies, and so forth. And the Earth was used by the founder beings as a very special planet that was used to literally drive around the universe, where they could see things. And it was a very, very special planet. Or it is a very, very special planet.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Matty, go on.
No, that was it. I was just answering Lana's question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matty. Appreciate that.
I can add to that, Lana, because I've got a very small transcription from his Living the Mystical Life Daily, which most of you have probably heard anyway. And this is what Andrew says about it. A long time ago, we were iPhones to another people. Founder beings saw us as this feral life force to be tamed and trained or entertained for long cycles of galactic movement. That was fundamentally a mistake. Consciousness entered biophotonic suits to become a workforce. Sentience became managers of the workforce in other forms of biophotonic suits. Then came DNA lineage-based I am technology suits, and consciousness and sentience became intermixed within its own subculture. They propagated us, humanity, as we know it on Earth today. As founder beings, we found our own source stream of light and divested into millions of worlds before reinvesting ourselves into light to come here. We are all founder beings. We co-created the celestial minds of Earth, manifesting at will. As founder beings, we let ourselves spread through the universe as source light, where we let go different soul shards.
We're gods.
Yeah, just as Matty said.
Thank you, Laura. I'm going to have to re-listen to that
Yeah,
again.
if anyone wants that little transcription, I can happily pop that up there later.
Sure.
So can I read a bit of the transcript, Laura? It pertains to what we were talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Someone's just suggested to me that we actually carry on reading through the transcript and then ask questions. If you'd like to do that, you carry on, Matty.
Well, I was just literally just picking a piece out of it that fits into what we were talking about earlier on. But if you want to go back and just begin to read it, it's up to you.
What's our consensus? What would we all like to do? A couple of people have asked me that we go from where we left off.
Yeah, read through the whole thing.
I think it'd be wise. Read a big chunk of it, and it may open up some questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to go first, Laura? Where were we at?
No, you go. You go from where you want to go.
Where were we at?
Oh, we got to Ascension, didn't we?
Okay, I've got to when he was describing about he was a little kid.
9 minutes, 10 seconds.
Okie dokie.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go 51 million years. Earth has already been ripped out of its home galaxy. The original dark forces that invaded from the war galaxy came here and saw Earth and said, that's the prize of the prize of the prize of the prize. All these other little planets were nothing to them. So they captured Earth through a spiritual invasion. outbred the people there by creating more corrupted souls that caused political devastation, land devastation, and dramatic wars with other places, until finally there was a core group of dark beings who took over the chakra system and the unity consciousness drive of Earth, and then teleported it against its will to another galaxy. So it's a teleportation device as well. That first teleportation greatly injured her. It was near dead, and Earth gave out a cry to the universe and beyond, I need help. Massive migrations from the 7 universes ascended on Earth and overbred the dark forces there, kicking them off. They still had the first interlinking of anchor societies there. When Earth began to go through its healing process, that would essentially be the dinosaur age. Sentience had been removed from the surface, but brought into an ethereal realm so the surface could graduate. The surface that we live on, this is the graduation timeline. If you're here to become a higher dimensional soul, to enter function with Earth, or go out to explore space with your consciousness, you have to be on the graduation timeline. Earth has 3 timelines, above, below, and center. And center is the graduating timeline. So at this point, Earth kicked off its first. They reinforced the energies of Earth. And they said, we know the spiritual invasion is coming, so we begin this process of creating pyramids. The first process of creating pyramids was to amplify the consciousness of Earth after the damaging effect of being ripped out of its original galaxy. So the pyramids were placed on the chakra points based on the crustal points, and forced the ability for the local sentients to create local realities, excuse me, and make a grid that was reinforced so that any entity coming in had to go through a filter to determine if you can actually make spiritual contracts with Earth sentients, to have sentient kind on the graduating timeline. At that point, the dark guys had spread to a few thousand other worlds and began dominating and controlling and mastering the system of domination and control on very low-end species. That's where they discovered if they were ever going to take Earth, they knew that in the galactic rotation, Earth would go from very light to very dark to very dense spots. And at those dense spots in the place that they could mass spiritually invade that place, they found that they could mass spiritually invade that place and then lower the consciousness level of the surface people by influencing the DNA, influencing the soul families, influencing the soul contracts, and literally getting us at every stage of the game and removing how we naturally live on our planet. And the Anunnaki were a part of that, as Martina was just saying. They were actually led here and influenced into altering our DNA. So in other words, we're disconnected from our own ability to communicate and commune to source. So then how did that begin? This goes back to the pyramids as well, right? Well, there's 9 layers of pyramids. Earth has been moved 12 times, captured 12 times. There are 9 layers of fortifications on the astral world, and there's no other planet in the universe or 3 other universes that has been fortified that much. So you know you're in a situation where the dark guys captured 4 to 5, the light guys recaptured 4 to 5, so on and so forth, until finally the fortification grid and the quarantine of the good guys out there is literally the hindrance of what we have, plus the multidimensional beings that are within us, manipulating drama, manipulating spiritual contracts, so that when unity consciousness comes, they can program their propaganda of thousands of years will come to fruition. We're a race with amnesia, and we're a race held hostage, in a perfect position for entities that want to take the more powerful people, take them somewhere else by their own belief. So we're entering another one of those periods of time, like a harvest period, so to speak, or ascension period. An ascension period. We're going out to a very dense part. We're coming out of a very dense part and going into a very light part of space. There are 66 planets in our solar system. The vast majority of them are in the light part of space, and Earth and Mars are stuck in the dense part, anchored by the sleeping people that haven't awoken to their consciousness. They're the ones anchoring us here now. There are bases on Mars, all over, everywhere. 1 minute. Just my place. I don't know what happened there. Did someone want to take over? I've just jumped right to the bottom of the...
Well, that's okay. It might be a good place to stop just there, Matty, because there's quite a lot in that already. If you're happy to, just for a minute.
Of course.
So let's go back to, we talked about going through a spiritual invasion. And that is where we have the corrupted souls coming in, which gradually took over the running of our planet, is put it basically, isn't it?
Yes.
Does everybody sort of grasp that? And anybody here got any questions on that particular? It's the breeding, isn't it, of the what do we call them now? Not to use a light worker term, 1%. What's Andrew's term for these? Oh, it's the 16. It was originally 16 multidimensional families.
15.
15 beings.
15.
Yeah.
Right, and I seem to remember last time I heard anything on it, it was reduced to about 5 or 6, or is it even less than that now, Matty?
I think it might be about 4 now.
Right, okay.
But some of these are fully invested as well, so you know they can't leave. They're fully invested.
Okay, and some of them are staying right to the end. I think he said, you know, you'd have to prize
going
up
states evidence.
cold
Going
dead
states
thing.
evidence, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that jumps out to me about that is just the sheer scope of it, the sheer size of it, and what she's been through. I mean, 12 teleportations like that and captures. It's just crazy. You know, she must have been thinking, what the hell did I get myself into?
Yeah. And it also said somewhere there that the dark beings didn't have any base or root here on the planet, so they had to force incarnate in order to create that. And I suppose if you think of the planet as a being, it's almost like a rape, isn't it? Because that's a forced incarnation. It's just a forced way of doing it. And then they tried to outnumber the light beings through doing it that way, you know, through getting in their people or their souls, as it were.
Yeah,
okay, go on, Sean.
They did outnumber the light forces, and that was the tool for the first forced teleportation.
Yeah.
And is this where reincarnation came? We didn't have reincarnation until they needed to use it as a technology to keep us from reconnecting to source.
That's a good question.
It must have been, because I know even when the Anunnaki came here, I know that's like recent history, but a lot of these beings that came here, once they came here, they found that they were trapped. So in my mind, like I was thinking that maybe the Archon grid is more of a recent concept, but it must be fairly ancient, because a lot of the beings that are here now are trapped because of that reason. And that was the trap, wasn't it? These incredible multidimensional beings, and they are incredible. You can't take that away from them. The long game they've played is just amazing. And you know, to lure people here, to be able to bring people at different places and manipulate them without them even knowing, while they're still at war with each other. It's just amazing, really immense.
And they've manipulated the whole game, right down to transitioning to death and going to your false light, and then a quick turnaround, a quick life review. I mean, it's like they've taken a copy of everything, but just reduced it down to suit their agenda. Well, we know that's what they did. But that might be an interesting question for Andrew later, Martina. Is that where reincarnation, the technology, came from?
And when did it begin? Was somebody wondering that, when it began?
Yeah, well, we were sort of thinking, was it about the time that you know, they came in and started to outbreed us, and that was one of their technologies?
It was the construction of the Archon grid, where they first they found those beings, and they gave them a godlike complex and filled them up with loads of light, and then shot them across the universe and into these places, and created these control systems.
And I suppose the line that stood out for me really in all of that was, we were raised with amnesia, and we were a race held hostage in a perfect position for entities that want to take the more powerful people and take them somewhere else by their own belief. So I think that was, but by their own belief. So is there something in that where, in order to capture them, they are able to manipulate how they think and what they believe?
My current memory or understanding is that Earth was a high vibe 7th dimensional being, and she consciously, awarely chose to become a galactic seed planet with 300 womb chakras. And the archons were also seventh dimensional beings, but they were completely unaware, and they were suckered, and they were forced out of their body, just like Maddie said, and then shot across space without bodies, and then like told, okay, you're a god. And so they were duped. And
Earth Mother's a much more higher sentience than just seventh dimensional. She's much more vast than that. And she was created as a seventh dimensional seed planet, and she chose that consciousness. She came from somewhere else. And the difference with the archons is that they were force evolved to that status.
Yes, yes.
And I think it's worth making a note of what Casey's just said, which is absolutely right. The whole thing, Mary, isn't it, a violation of our free will? That's how they were able to do it.
Yes.
Because we're a free-willed planet, and they got us to choose that.
And eventually get us to the point where we just give tacit consent to everything that they do.
Yeah, and still do.
Yes.
Anyone here about Earth having been a 12th dimensional?
Yes, yes, I did, Martina.
Yeah.
The very beginning, and then of course,
Yeah.
with all the DNA farming and the genetic manipulation of our DNA, the awareness levels drop.
I think she's a 12th dimensional sentience in a 7th dimensional body.
Even beyond. I think we went down to a 2-3 dimensional level at some stage before we actually started waking back up again. So I would say, when did reincarnation and all that begin? I don't know if that makes any sense, but can we say that was part of the DNA farming? Going back,
Yeah.
I think it's all linked, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
All interconnected. Yeah. Yeah.
Because of course, the whole idea of keeping us repeating and recycling is so that they can harvest the energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, not all of them were forced incarnations. So, and I would assume that lots of us did come back because we knew what was going on. So we did come back because we knew we had to help Earth. So
yeah, I mean, I've always learnt from my light worker days that Earth put out a clarion call.
Yeah, it said that there.
144,000, is it? Light workers responded or something. I don't know. I can't remember about that now, but I do remember reading that she put out a clarion call a long time ago.
Yes.
Sorry, I read it a long time ago.
I remember, all I can give is a few memories, that the ones that I actually have, little sparse memories here and there, but I do actually, I think I talked about this last week. I remember being in a huge ship. I mean, it was huge. You can imagine, vast, like the size of a city. And there were lots and lots of people, and they were all walking into this room, into these huge sarcophagi, like a technological sarcophagi, just like you see on sci-fi films. And everybody was wearing spacesuits and that, and we were all being patted on the back and cheered, and then we're getting to these to be born into Earth. So I think there were many different ways that we came in here, and many different missions, and people from all over the place, some using technology, some doing it in the traditional fashion, others being lured and duped here. To have soul family here was probably considered, a very valuable commodity.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. This was the place to be.
Casey was saying that too. She said had dreams where in settings that seem like original seeding and tending of life with beings who seem to be something I was teaching about growing things and monitoring the progress of it. Now, if anyone has memories like that or triggers through dreams and stuff, this is a really cool thing to ask yourself the question, if you remember that now, how can you actually contribute to the planet and to the awakening and to yourself and everything within those lines now, right? Because this whole thing, why we're going through this is not just is also to realize that whatever we can remember now, whatever we get triggered, is probably part of our purpose now.
Mm.
And I love to hear when people have those stories. Like, that's a beautiful, memory to start having, and it allows us all to piece together other pieces of the puzzle as well.
Yeah.
There's another bit here where he talks about the sentience being taken from the graduation timeline and put in the ethereal realm. So presumably that's like Hollow Earth, and why there are giants and dinosaurs and so on in Hollow Earth. Is that right?
Where is that, Laura?
Oh, it's 9:54. I haven't gone very far into it there. It's just something I picked up on. When Earth began to go through its healing process, that would essentially be the dinosaur age. But sentience had been removed from the surface and brought in,
That still happens all the time, that we get thrown off the timeline. They're trying to take us off timelines, you know, through the domination, through the manipulation and everything.
But things like dinosaurs and I don't know, giants and other things like the old dodo, the bird that became extinct and so on, they don't actually can not exist anymore, do they? They go to Hollow Earth.
Yes,
they exist now in Hollow Earth. Yeah.
They were technology at that point.
Yeah.
So here's
no longer the ancestral connection.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Alan. Yeah.
I've got a question which works with that. So if we talk about the graduation timeline, the central timeline, and we have the above and the below, do we know what those three timelines, the distinction between those three timelines?
Do you want to?
No, we don't. We
what they are, what they represent, the three different timelines.
Yes.
There wasn't one of them is the graduation timeline. One of them is was it the animals and the things like that?
Yeah, that's the below.
Animal sentence.
That's the
below one.
Timeline.
Yeah.
And the above is that the guides, guardians, and whatnot.
Yeah, the angelic realm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So this is another one to look into and to, you know, because this is now, we being on the central timeline, is we have the opportunity to work with the above timeline, which we already do anyway, right? And the below timeline. So but it's just nice to bring that into the forefront of your awareness, really. So these are the things, especially now in this year with the new energies, to continuously actually maybe read up or, you know, a bit more on it and work with those timelines.
Yeah.
I think that's something unique for the planet Earth. I think Andrew mentioned that very few planets have those three timelines. Most have just the one.
Yes. Absolutely. And stay in non-competition with those, you know. And also, I think another thing is that what keeps coming to me is don't allow yourself to be thrown off the timeline. And
Yeah.
I guys watched his show with Monty on Thursday. I think it was Thursday, where he talked about the changes in Hollow Earth, which I love all that shit anyway.
Yeah.
You know, with the other guys taking over now.
Yes, I heard it. Yeah.
The stamps for the 8th and the 9th color, you know, where the people who have the stand, you know, let's consider us those, you know, we are those guys. That will be more difficult to manipulate us, and, you know, like that.
Martina, I wanted to ask you whether you've heard any chatter or whether you've intuited any insights from what's going on in Inner Earth after the post-voting and the removal of the CEO and the COO, the Dracos.
Well, you heard what Andrew, the latest update Andrew gave, right? With moving the lizards, other than the CFO, they're still there. And we've got now the Series A guy down there, the gray, which is apparently on our side, pretty much working along those lines and branding those cars and everything. And then I tried to look up the Tavorians he was talking about. I couldn't find anything. He was saying that they used to work with the Atlanteans 16 million years ago, right?
If you read the Bhagavad Gita or the Mahabharata, one of those ones, they're not mentioned by that name, I don't think, but they're the blue beings that you hear talked about.
Is that what he meant? Yeah.
Or
What
related.
do you call them, Martina?
Yeah, or one of them, kind of subculture kind of thing.
Tavorians, something with Toovorians. Alan, to answer your question, other than that, I've just gone down, you know, as I do, and just had a look around what's going on. But that's just for me personally. There was a welcoming, an openness. That's what I energetically perceived, and really like this is going to change, and we're going to work with you guys on that level. But maybe that was my wishful thinking at the same time. I haven't. The latest I heard from Andrew was that what he said on that Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do it right now. Just link into Hollow Earth and see what you're thinking. What are you getting?
Why not?
I've got another version of myself in the Hollow Earth.
What are you getting?
Sense of unease and distrust. Because I only get one perspective, you know. I'm just getting one perspective here, and this is insectoid species. It's kind of the feeling of just like pretty much like Biden getting in instead of Trump, you know. But to them, it's just kind of like, well, really, it's not what we want, you know. This is just one particular species, though. I'm not.
I suppose this is actually a good point, Matt, you're making, because everything that's happening subsurface is sort of a reflection of what's happening down there.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that confusion is definitely part of it. And what I perceive that something is happening. I mean, that's a big fucking thing, having two lizards taken off their positions. For me, I see it as and that's how I perceived it, as a really big thing going forward, you know.
I'd like to share something, Martina, if I may. Something that's happened to me recently, and it really touched me, because the truth is that through all of this, the Great Awakening will protect us. No, there is an energy behind it. The future is real now. And I was working with a client, and we were speaking about negative ET interaction, and it was for her husband. And as soon as she mentioned it, straight away some greys popped up, and they were very, very amicable, and it just didn't feel right. And so I kind of swiped them away, and behind was a Draco reptilian. And this thing was just as surprised to see me as I was to see it. You know, we were both just like, holy shit, you know. And I didn't fight him or anything like that, but I just simply, you know, said that you can't do this anymore. You know, you've been seen. And then I'd do some removals, and off it went. And then we continued our conversation, and all of a sudden, I've never had this before, like to this power, the whole collective attacked me, and it came in from the right-hand side. It was this horrendous energy came roaring in. And then all of a sudden, from my left-hand side, this huge bright light just shone. And that collective just, woof, they were gone. And I didn't have to do anything. I didn't try to fight anybody. I didn't try to push or pull or control the situation in any way, shape, or form. But this light just protected me. And I know that we have this ability, you know, if you're walking the path of peace, if you are on the path of self-mastery, your awakening will protect you. And more so now that with these new energies and the things that are coming in now, it really is time to say, what does it mean to be a multidimensional being? What does it mean to create? Because you can now go into the future, go into the past, you create other versions of yourselves and put them out there. You know, if you need to go somewhere, do something, have a client, you can have multiple versions of yourself in that room working at any one time. And you create these consciously in the now. And these are the things, you know, and something that I posted the other day, one thing that I've noticed is if your prayer is contrary to your actions, so if you're praying for one thing and behaving in a way that's contrary to what you're praying for, then you can see your precognitive workforce just go into action. It's rapid and quick. There seems to be an acceleration of the way that we're processing the information we receive, but not only that, the resolution on the planet at the moment as well.
Yeah. I think what you're
Yeah.
saying is very poignant, because the trust journey is one of the biggest journeys now, you know, and the trust journey is obviously linked to the work, like what we were saying yesterday. I think the other thing that's really exciting, and that's already showing the changes, is when you think of, you know, the CEO being a Sirius A gray, you know, they're very much in tune with the science and the spiritual science. So, and it's already showing, and the predictions are coming through, that we're going to go through huge technological upgrades, and you can see what's happening now. It's showing, it's playing out on the earthly scene now. It's all the vaccine scams and all that wars, vaccine wars or whatever they call it, is starting now. So it's already a reflection of what's gonna happen. And I also get that, you know, that people on the planet, because of the changes of the energy, are really going to put a lot of pressure onto Hollow Earth, you know.
This, I can also add in on the topic of Hollow Earth. The one dream I had about Hollow Earth is when Martina, Mary, I don't know, Andrew, whoever was there, we were discussing Hollow Earth. And my dream was Andrew was reading the Galactic News, and he said the King of Jumanji, it wasn't Jumanji, but that was the closest I get to it. The King of Jumanji, this is a chap in Hollow Earth, has relinquished all kingships on all time streams, dimensions, timelines, universe, etc. So, in other words, in Hollow Earth, there will be no more kingships, which is huge, because if that is reflected on surface Earth, which things are, it will be very interesting to see, for example, whether the UK does actually have another monarchy. But that's my only little input I had for Hollow Earth.
Can I say something, Laura?
Yes, sure.
So when Martin asked the question earlier, a few minutes ago, my awareness was, following up on what you said, is, you know, when you pour a water on an ant, where the ants are, and you pour water in it, all the ants come out.
Yeah.
They are in disarray, and the queen bee has gone. So, which is what Laura was saying earlier, that what I'm noticing, that the earth has been moved and the queen bee has gone. So there is no ruler anymore. So the ants are kind of in disarray and in confusion, and establishing, okay, so we don't have a queen, so what is it that we can create now, or what is it that we can create ourselves now, which it's reflecting on what's going on Earth, you know, here in the world. And also what I remember that Andrew spoke about, I think it was last year in the show, that something will happen around Netherlands, or UK or Netherlands soon.
No, that's been scrapped now, Andrea. That was part of the season that they scrapped.
It's already happening in Netherlands at the moment, you know, all these disturbances. But what I am perceiving is that this big ant, you know, the monarchy, if you will, you know, I don't know how to express it, has been disturbed, has been poured water on, and the queen has gone, and all these little soldiers are now in disarray and considering, okay, so if we get together, then we can form unity in the fifth world of peace, which is what I think Laura described. You know, will that be this monarchy or will that be that? And I just got a deja. Suddenly, I just got a deja vu. I don't know what happened. I just got a deja vu. It just boom. This energy just came in. I don't know from where. But yeah, that's my awareness, and it is happening in Netherlands. All these disturbances, as we saw it in the news, and you know, we can see what's happening in the world at the moment. So I'm excited.
Okay. Laura, I just want to bring your attention to Lana.
Lana
wants to have
would like
a word.
to come.
Yes.
Yeah, Lana, you've got something to say, darling.
Yes. You were mentioning something about the Queen in England, and I remember Andrew had said something a while ago about, and which was interesting to me because he said that Kamala Parker would not be Queen, and then another time he had mentioned that Kate will not be Queen. So what is that saying? It's, to me, it's saying that there will never be a king or a queen again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that
It's a
interesting?
possibility.
Isn't it? Yeah, it is a possibility.
Because when he had said that, I was thinking about it quite a bit, and I'm thinking, why is he saying that? Because it doesn't seem that, you know, Charles will become king and then his son will become king after him. And so, as I said, it's interesting that this is coming up now.
Yes, isn't it?
The queen might be the last person in the monarchy there.
Well,
Yeah.
we have to wait. We have to wait and see. We have to wait and see what happens. But one thing I can tell
Yeah.
you is, within the inner Earth, it's what's going on there is a lot of those guys are realizing that they have also been propagandized. You know, a lot of them have propagandized themselves, and they're not all in unity. They're not. They don't work as one collective, one solid group. There are factions there that have nothing to do with any of the others. You know, and these beings, it doesn't matter what higher dimensional beings you are, you can still be duped. You can still be a zealot, you can still be a martyr, you can still get lost on the path. And I think a lot of these beings down there are realizing that they've been propagandized themselves for far too long. And that there are other forces at play as well.
It's just like, you know, he keeps talking at the moment about the 5 stages of grief. And it's exactly the same down there. They're all going, some are in denial, some are already fuck that, some are angry and all that. I had a dream 4 days ago, and a big spider, I birthed it, not through me, but through some other body. And I don't know if it was a human body, but it came through like it was a very messy cesarean. And it was a huge spider coming out. And she was absolutely amazing. She a galactic spider, right? And she had all gems. There were ruby in the front. The third eye was ruby and that sort of stuff. And it was, the message was, the galactic weaver of a new dream weave has been born.
Wow.
Boom. And that's exactly what I'm getting as well.
Yeah.
That is exactly what I'm getting. That's, you know, that's what I wrote the other day. You can affect the fabric of the dream weave. And this is it. You know, we now have a chance to really create, but it's about your own efforts and your own responsibility, because that is why it's so fundamental for us to govern the parasympathetic and sympathetic, because from what I've seen recently, everything's being turned up. Now, if you wish to create something, doubt, fear, envy, anger, any of these kind of emotions, when they arise, they come from the central nervous system. And that is the central nervous system trying to attack you, trying to put you off of your course. As far as I can tell at the moment, pretty much all of these negative thoughts, thought patterns, repetitive thoughts are all a product of the central nervous system, nothing to do with our own consciousness. And it's that part of you that will outcreate what your heart really wants to create.
Yeah, I agree, Matty. And I think that's where the discipline comes in, that even we talked about at the very first show of this year. I do think that we are required to kind of exercise a discipline now because of where we are and because of our level of evolvement and our awareness. I think that we can do it, and we need to do that to go forward, because the creative door is wide open.
We need to begin practicing these skills just on a very basic fundamental level. Like,
Yes.
like creating a version of yourself to wait by your shrine in the morning, or by your altar in the morning for when you sit down to do your prayers, to add extra energy to you. Just simple little things like this, just creating other versions of yourself here and there, you know, and remembering just not to step on the journey of any being.
And this something comes in, as you said, from the central nervous system. You know, it's just a kind of a case of acknowledging it and letting it pass through.
It
Just don't
exposes itself,
entangle.
Mary.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
exposes itself, and if you are on the journey and you really genuinely want to grow, then you'll pay attention to those things. And the more you see it, the more obvious it becomes. You know,
Yeah.
I the other night, it tried everything for me. It went from doubt, and as soon as I saw it, then it went into fear programming, and my mind had all these different little things that it can use. And then it even managed to kind of access my psychic abilities and to create being standing in the corner of the room or things like this, and I just knew, you know, it wasn't real. So it will try
Yes.
anything that it can.
Yes. And I suppose that whole thing as well of, you know, like the old programming, we've not ever done it right. So we have to keep repeating it. So it's like that old wounded stuff, and the internal script that went with that will keep popping in and out now as well. So it's like, you know, the discipline again of just letting that pass through. That's done, dusted, gone through. So I think that there's a lot of that energy coming up.
Which is why what I mentioned earlier, that because this is what happened, everybody is blah blah, you know, in disarray. But now all these energies coming up. So if you dig really deep into your core, into one's individual core, not collective but individual, I can tell you, I can share with you that I dug very deep last week and this week, and I mean, miracles, you know, but I have to go very deep to this to emerge. And because I take responsibility, and when we do that, then that's what's going to bring up the people of peace. And I totally, you know, a lot of things change, but I never wanted to be more 70 years old. Like Martina said, and Andrew mentioned on the Friday show as well, that we're going to be 70 or so, it's going to be a totally different world. And I saw that emerging, what they were producing now. I saw that on the Zero Edge, that what's coming to light. I'm like, wow, what are these beings? You know, and there's another one popped up now. If you have a look at it, there are some beings popping up, which is what Andrew said. I think to Monty, that we are going to have a very different world.
Yes, yes. There's a flushing out, isn't there, going on?
Yes,
purging. Yeah.
I had a lot of purging, like for past 3 weeks. It's you know, I had a lot of cleansing for myself anyway.
Yes, yeah.
Time is speeding up, and so is the consequences of the karma. It's just becoming clearer to see. There's less latency to deal with it.
I think it's instant now almost, isn't it, Alan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to add on to what Andrea was saying about you know, the fact that we're going to be 70 something years old. And the thing is, you know, it is a little bit to know that you know, we're not going to have this world for a little bit longer than maybe most of us have hoped. But the thing is, you know, if you want to have relationships with extraterrestrials, if you want to be able to have these different experiences and be able to talk to your guides and do all these things, it's available to you in whichever way you want. It's available to you now. And the thing is, there are people waking up, but we see they're going through those first stages. I'm sure many of us have been in delusion, you know, many of us have been in delusion. And we know what that's like. You know, you just believe these things because they feel good. But as we grow and we develop, can you imagine what the next 20 years are going to be like? You know, because we're going to keep going, we're going to keep growing. You know, from the difference that we've made, I bet all of us are completely different people from a decade ago. You know, and that's increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing. So I think in the interim, in between that point, we are the teachers, you see. And what a privilege it is to have access to this kind of knowledge, this information, and this kind of mastery, such ahead of the masses. it's not a hierarchical thing, it's a responsibility. But there's going to be, you know, so much good stuff that can happen in those years until the whole world accepts it. The only problem is that on our journey now, can you live that kind of life, but do it without anybody else understanding it or backing you up? That's the thing. Do you need validation from other people? Do you need other people to say, yes, this is real? Because that's not going to happen. At the moment, it's a personal thing.
And against the backdrop of Inner Earth, it seems we're going to be having less of a bully society, because they've always seemed to have that down there, and the people are now speaking up and saying, no, we're not going to do it your way, Dracos. You're out. And that's good to know, because they have to live with one another. And I think that was one of the reasons why they just didn't want to stand up. And now they are. And as below, so above. We'll see less of that hierarchy. And I'm looking forward to that.
They say don't get high on your own supply, don't they? You know, don't get high on your own supply. It's like crackheads selling crack. You know, I'm glad that the Dracos are, you know, losing a little bit of influence.
Time to turn them loose.
Yeah.
The only thing with that is going from domination into choice is quite a scary thing for lots of people. And
Yes.
it's a place of like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? You know, nobody tells me what to do. You know, nobody pushes me to make an A or B choice. You know, now, oh, I've got so how many choices? What am I supposed to do now? You know, and then the fun question comes in, isn't it? But that's a good thing, because we have ourselves here, right? We have lots of fun. And if we don't carry on now, what's going to happen? We're going to talk about the first transcript again next week.
I was just thinking that, Martina. I was just thinking that.
Yeah. There's a lot in it, you see. There is a lot in it. You know, there's so much in this. It's only when you go through it slowly that it's actually full of useful information.
And maybe we shouldn't get too far into instant gratification here, you know. I like to once a year listen to all of those videos again, at least once a year. And, you know, and each year I get something new from it. And I think, you know, even if it takes us an entire year to get through the whole thing, interspersed with other things, you know, then so be it.
Exactly.
COVID 23.
Sorry?
Yeah, we've got plenty of time.
We're still talking about
So have we got any more on that I've forgotten even who read it now? Matty read earlier, way back in the show, that section. Pyramids as a whole other topic as well. The fortification,
Laura,
so on.
Can I add something to the 15 multidimensional beings here?
Yeah, sure.
We move
Go on, Lana.
So I have a note here that I made quite a while ago. The 15 multidimensional beings are as follows. 3 of them were 6th-dimensional, 2 7th-dimensional, 6 were 8th-dimensional, and 4 were 9th-dimensionals. The 9th-dimensional beings are 3rd generations from immigrants from other universes here. So there were only 3 galaxies in our universe when these beings migrated here. And that's what I wanted to share, to add to the record of the
ancient beings,
multidimensional
beings.
Yeah,
ancient. Thanks, Lana.
Yep, you're welcome.
And you know, the thing I think as well, those multidimensional beings, they were light guys, they were dark guys. You know, a lot of people like to think of them as all being just the dark, but they weren't just the dark. There's a light dictatorship as well. They were neutral beings, and they conquered all 3 timelines.
Now there's another thing. In addition to Hollow Earth going through the, you know, through the process of reorganization and stuff. Remember, we were talking last year about the supernova.
Yes.
And in retrograde. And Earth actually didn't get hit by the supernova, which can still happen, but the 65 planets did. So what happened is a tremendous change, and there's one of the things I want to, you know, pin him down at some stage on a Tuesday, maybe to talk a little bit more on that, because there has been a change in the 65 planets, which has a huge impact on the entire galactic ascension machine, which they're all part of that karmic resolution. And there has been created more balance now between, because some were, you know, I don't know, more negative, and but with this not retrograde, with the supernova, that has changed. So there's a change there that is now obviously also impacting on what's going on, because now this is now again, since we coming out of retrograde, now their stuff is getting reflected back onto us. So that's another thing to look at.
When did he say this,
really
Martina? Because I felt something in the last couple of weeks. I've really felt something change.
Not that long ago. I can't remember. Not that long ago.
It was, I think, it was the Tuesday of last week. He didn't say it yesterday, but I think it was the Tuesday of last week, if you want to look that one up.
2-3 weeks ago, we had a conversation along those lines.
Yeah, he did mention it. I remember hearing him talk about that. Yeah.
But that's going to be interesting, you know, as well. So we need, and this is what we need to start doing. So even if we start looking at our multidimensional celestial mediumship, where we say, okay, simultaneous living now, I am finite, I am infinite, that's one thing, you know, getting our paradoxical us together. The next level, and that's why this unity consciousness thing that he wrote and shared on Facebook is very cool. There's quite a few subtle things in there, because the level we are working at, we need to now also add the celestial earth to working with us, you know, so, you know, to really, really consciously taking the communication and the cooperation with earth, and of course with the universe and the galaxies. So we need to step up the level of our
Connections.
Having said that, advanced mastery is part of that. So we really need to start looking at, you know, the mastery that we are applying here in our lives between our interactions. We now start to actually have to bring them up in the unseen too, and really step up the sovereign boundaries in the unseen. Not from a fear porn perspective, but from a knowingness that, you know, assholes there, assholes here, same thing.
And you can be of service as well, you know, be of service. You can cross over, any one of us can cross over discarnate beings. Just have to take the time to do it. You know, there are services that we can give to the unseen world.
Yeah, that's a straightforward one. Always create a rainbow bridge and always do it in sacred space. Is how I do it.
Offerings.
Matty? Yeah.
Energy work.
About the DNA and the money.
Say that again, Andrea.
Can I say something about the DNA and the money?
Sure.
So I transcribed Andrew's GH 2.0. I'm not going to read it all, obviously, but he is playing the devil's advocate about money, because obviously, you know, there's a lot of people on this world now worried about money. And Andrew is saying that Andrew and Andrew having a conversation, and Andrew was saying that everyone is just, the first thing comes is the money, money, money. So so when you get stuck in the ideology of money, you will never understand that you're meant to be a living, breathing, natural being who doesn't use money as a source and form of everything. And then he says that when you didn't have money, let's say you don't have money and you needed to earn it somehow, you went out, you seeked assistance, and you went somewhere and you met someone there, and it's like, you know, your DNA, so money, so you wouldn't have it otherwise if you'd had money, if you know what I mean. So you are serving your purpose. You are, like you said, you are serving that DNA. So it's like, it's not the source. And I think that is going to also kind of get into the reverse, that people will realize that we work more with our DNA, with our soul families, rather than money. So they're talking about that. It's quite an interesting conversation with regards to that, with the DNA and the money. That I really recommend for you to listen to that, or to even transcribe it.
Okay, that's.
I think it's quite interesting, because it's a very overwhelming fear and anxiety and depression and suicide and everything is going on because of money, because people were programmed into this.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's maybe something for another Zoom, because we want to stick with GH1, otherwise, as Martina said, we just won't get through it.
I know, I'm just saying, because we talked about the DNA and it's like in a simple word, just wanted to put it in simple words.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, are we happy to read on a bit? What time are we now? Yeah. Do we want to, let's get the next section done, shall we? Are we happy to do that? Anything left over from what Matty's just read, if we can remember?
Do we have time? Yeah, I have a question. Did we do the first fall of Lemuria? Do we know times on this, or do you know anything when? Has he given any times on the first fall of Lemuria, the second, and there's a third one too, isn't there?
No, we could really do with a timeline, little graph.
Shall we say that, Laura, start looking out for times?
Yeah.
About, going backward and forward and timeline wars and all that.
Yeah.
Any times, any dates that he's that you find in any of the transcripts or the recordings, just throw them into the Earth Nouveau group, because we're starting a timeline, an event. Laura has started a document where we're going to put this up so that we get a bit of an idea, First fall of Lemuria. Anybody got something there?
What,
okay.
For the time? No idea.
You don't have to, but keep.
Yeah.
That, guys. Yeah. Out there. We're going to make a timeline.
A lot of that is in these videos. He does give approximation timelines all throughout these videos.
Cool. Thank you. So yeah.
I'd love to see it in some sort of graph form, because it would really help in my understanding, and I'm sure a lot of people. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll do that then.
Does anyone have a timeline as to when the free will came, when the universe shifted from non-free will to free will? Because I think that's when the hairball really began. That's where the timeline genocide started occurring and everything else.
Wasn't that from the very beginning? There was only 2 years where wasn't that from the beginning, Alan?
It was
I'd
very
say
early
it would
on.
be around the 480,000 year mark when the multidimensional beings came, and that's when the timeline genocide really began. It was only when they started going back into time do we then really reference this 52 million year history through that timeline manipulation. Sometimes when I look back at Lemuria at the very beginning, when Earth was that 7th dimensional seed planet, I just think about what would have progressed naturally had there not been any of those spiritual invasions. You would have just had the society growing naturally. There would have been periods of light and darkness coming through the movement of space and time, but it would not have resolved itself into a destruction of those societies. And so that's what occurred with all these timeline genocides. And when you had the multidimensional beings going back, going into the background, going into the small sentients like blades of grass and things like that, to just hide from the rest of the battle of the dark and the light, that we're also doing the very same thing, going back into time with the timeline genocide. It's just that hairball really seemed to precipitate from that one point in time when we went into free will and the introduction of war into our galaxy, which we were not ready for.
Another big question for Andrew.
Can I say something here?
Yeah.
Go on, Lana.
In the next section, he talked about, he said here, when time wars began, that's tricky thing. 480,000 years ago is when the actual timeline wars began. So would that answer the question?
Yeah, that's a part of it, but I think free will itself was a lot more ancient. Yeah.
This is where we need to consider we can't think linear. So when we talk about timeline, it's a linear one, because that doesn't necessarily make sense. 480,000 years, that's when the Anunnaki came, yes. But there were timeline wars before that, right?
Yeah, and also when that happens, you know, if you have time travel technology, just because you're at that particular moment in time, you then affect other eras of time. So what was 400,000 years ago can now be 80 million years ago as well.
Exactly. But having said all that, it would still be helpful to have a couple of dates, right? To hold on to it. And
for our linear minds.
Well, we also have to remember we had 4 paradoxes. We're in the 5th one now.
Yes.
Which is really not a paradox. So it gets quite confusing, all these different paradoxes.
with all the uncreational events, absolutely, that fucks up the.
That's where the Mandela effect revocation. Read that one.
Yeah.
Nice and slowly.
Okay. I shut up.
No, that's fine. I'm completely lost now. Okay. Do we want to read any more? Have we had enough? We've been at it an hour and a half now.
I think we might have had enough.
Yeah. How do we all feel?
Well, a little further down in the transcript, he talked about Lemuria. So if you guys wanted to go a little further down.
Lemuria is an interesting concept.
It's at 1722.
See, we have to remember as well that we didn't just have the spiritual invasions as well, but the nature of the way that the galaxies are set up is that, you know, everything's in a rotation as well. And so we have what the ancient Indians called the Kali Yuga, you know. So as we live in a binary star system, and as the star systems revolve around each other like this, when the stars approach, consciousness raises, and as they move away from each other, consciousness dips. And then there's all these other twists and turns, the galactic plane, and all these other ways that consciousness raises and dips and does all kinds of different motions. There's all these different factors into it. I think if Lemuria had just been left to be what it was, it might have been very boring. But I think they might have had to just leave and go somewhere else for so many millions of years and then come back.
So I've written something down here. So if we're just reading 480,000 years, the timeline wars began, right? And that's obviously the Anunnaki coming onto the Earth. Time travel wars was to make the first species on Earth. Separation caused through competition. So probably the real time travel wars, what we consider as that, really only started 480,000 years ago when the Anunnaki came. And everything else is probably just named differently. We need to check on that.
Even the Neanderthals were able to uncreate planets remotely. So I think this was the thing where beings were starting to outcreate each other, so that one race would come down and they'd go to their source and outcreate and uncreate them, and people were just destroying entire planets and species all over the place.
Yeah. Now, Laura, why don't we look? We've got 2 pages left or 1 page left. Why don't we finish it off and then we can let it go?
Yeah.
Have you got 1 page left?
1 page. Matthew, where did you read? What time did you read?
Oh, I don't know. I don't pay attention.
It was only 14:12.
Oh. Okay, well then we've got 2 pages left. Shall we do it?
Let's just do it. Anybody volunteering to read? So it's me then, unless anyone want to read? Okay, so I call this world in this solar system the Galactic Antiques Roadshow, because the vast majority of species that got lured in their drama were here to salvage the thousands or millions of ships that are littering our solar system from the numerous wars over and over. Wow, well, how do we navigate this time? Let's look at the 50 million year concept. When time wars began, that's the tricky thing. 480,000 years ago is when the actual time wars began. But we're on a planet with 3 timelines. They were only going after the graduating timeline in the beginning. So the first set of multidimensional beings that had incarnated here became 40% of our breeding population. 15 beings equaled 40% of humanity. At that point, it was nearly 70 billion people on this world. That's a lot of them. That's how they got soul family status with everyone. They then brought in dimensional technology that was meant for vessels only and installed it on Earth so that they could take one continent out of a timeline and put it back into a deep, distant timeline, one by one by one, so they can get to the point to create what's called the first species of Earth. There's 72 first species of Earth, because every time Earth was recaptured, they tried to rearrange the timelines. But once you have sentience that's born, you can't erase the sentience, and Earth has to adopt that as a first species. So the time wars are all about creating the first sentience. We have 72 first species now, as many as 6,000 different refugee species who have come to live on our world because their worlds are being decimated or destroyed. And Earth has always been this point where souls migrate to. I call it like, you know, the ducks in the winter, the massive flowing flows of ducks going that way. But Earth is this migration center because it has a graduation timeline that's very impressive. You have 100% free will here, and you come in with a blank line. It's very important. There are other words that you remember all your past lives. You speak by the time you're 4 months old. We go through this growing process. That's cherished in other worlds. Well, it seems it could also be a disability if you're programmed and manipulated and taken over. And then there's that element of soul contracts that you mentioned, where the soul comes in, it can be bounced, which is one way of shoving us off our path. And another one is adding fine print. So do you want to talk a little about that? Yeah, it started in Lemuria. Lemuria was really high consciousness. Earth was its true seventh dimensional status. It was creating DNA, and it was inviting other species to come live here for a while so they could live above these womb chakras and create DNA and then take it to a new world in unity to this new world. They would never force bring DNA to a new world. Earth is also capable of physically teleporting, transporting the DNA wisdom that's created in these womb chakras to a blank Akashic record planet that's about to invite its first group of souls to come in and live on it. That's its purpose. During Lemurian times, there were earth cities all over. There were ground cities, and there were as many as 5,000 different species that came to work with Earth to create DNA to spread. Well, the dark guys got their little fingers in there and started creating their drama within inside. And as society began to build to its peak, factions formed in it. You had spiritual factions, you had scientific factions, you had no technology factions, high technology factions. And these factions began the separation. And the separation is what took Earth from, I've lost a page.
I have it here, Laura.
Thank you. Carry on, Mary. I've lost the page.
Okay. And the separation is what took Earth from a seventh dimensional status to a sixth dimensional. So it literally lost a whole quotient of its exponential energy. The separation caused a mass migration away. Earth was left undefended. It was captured. That's the first fall of Lemuria. They, the multidimensional beings who were here, orchestrated that capture because they had gotten in. The new beings that came to take over Earth reanimated Lemuria with the leftover refugee population here, instilled domination and control, and began an incarnation pattern to bring in more of the kinds that they wanted from the other worlds that were dominated and controlled. We were talking about that earlier. At this point, the good guys of the rest of the universe said, we have to do something about this. But there was a huge debate among the ascended masters, the philosophers. There is a galactic sentience that created war in another galaxy, and the galactic sentience allowed it to come here. This was known as the first mistake of the prime creator. The galaxy we were in wasn't ready for war. It wasn't set up for war, but it's here now. So they took they took way too long to figure out a result for it. At that point, many species began taking up war to defend themselves. It was just natural. That creates the first lines of drama. Mars is one of those planets that's high technology, very low spirituality when it was first in existence. It was a commerce center, but it turned commerce into a military-industrial complex. When Mars and Earth began their first lines of drama, Earth needed technology to support the defense and fortification process. That's how Mars and Earth got interlinked before they got through into this solar system. Venus was a high philosophical society with thousands of individual realities where they invited species to come and share technology, share sentience. Venus has got the twin flame of the feminine energy to it for a reason, so it can support all that consciousness of other worlds there. Earth itself during these timeline wars, when we look at the section from 480,000 to 420,000 years ago, is when all the big players of the 2,200 primary soul families from 2,300 different species. So there's just a little difference. Soul families breed, create species, and there's the actual numbers of species. All of them were in competition to make Earth theirs, and all of them had time travel technology. All of them had interdimensional vessels. All of them had explored the universe, and they were all in competition to get the mark to make that first species. So that's what put us in the setup of the time wars. We look at Earth as I look at Earth before the timelines were unified, as this just giant ball of mess. And in this giant ball of mess, you could never know what was really being done. One person would do something that would counteract this. Somebody would do something to counteract this. Somebody would create 5,000 timelines and only do one important thing on one timeline. And it would take you forever to figure it out. So that's how it all works. Sorry. Lemuria first fell, recaptured, Lemuria's rise again. The lights in that, right? As the lights in it, it tries to unravel all the timelines. Earth is stuck with new first species on it. Those species need to graduate and migrate off this world. Constant graduation, migration, remigration back here. A lot of dark worlds were migrating here now. So we got to the second fall of Lemuria. At this point, Lemuria understood the war is lost. They get it. They dimensionally understand it. But they also know that deep in the future, they're going to come to a point where it's going to go extremely dense, extremely open to extremely dense, to extremely open to extremely, oh yeah, that's just said twice. So they began leapfrogging in time with a 3/4 of their population in bringing the air cities to the future, to free the future people of the past. That's where they began defending the world on the central graduation timeline. The above timeline is where the high dimensional entities can come in and act as guides or ascended masters. The lower timeline is where younger spirits or animal spirits can live on Earth and then graduate into having human bodies. They're not worried about the above and below. They're worried about the graduation timeline. That's where the majority of these timeline wars are. Do you have any questions on that? Sorry, now I've just gone too far down there. And then he asks, have there been graduations? These are the questions.
Do you want me to take over for a bit, Mary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, do, please.
Have there been graduations over there hasn't been a graduating class in 410,000 years. So we're getting a timeline here. So it's only 400,000 years ago that the Archon grid was built, beginning of Lemuria, when they started entrapping souls. And then all of this incarnation process began. In my mind, it was a lot more ancient than that. So the normal process would be for there to be continual evolution and graduation, correct? So that's an organic process that would ordinarily happen, natural. Right, and so all of these time wars and the dark have corrupted the incarnation process. So what we have is people that are not necessarily ascending and leaving. They're stuck in reincarnation, reincarnating over and over, and how they get back to the astral plane and basically have a breather, and then they're sent right back. Are there pools of souls as well where they're regenerized? Anyway, and then just like sorry, I've lost my place here. They're regenerized, yes, and then they're like divvied off and then basically programmed for whatever. There are whole migrations of souls that aren't allowed to incarnate here and are stuck in our astral world. Literally can't go back until they've had a lifetime here. And so our astral worlds are overflowing with all these things that are just stuck. Does that in any way relate to the demonic forces? Oh yeah, because so many of those entities up there get impatient, they get mad, and some of them are dark entities that are, you know, they've missed their cue too. They wanted to come in and get in the game, and then they wanted to kick out the 15 beings, but they can't. They're stuck. Their game.
And that's it.
It's amazing, isn't it? They're stuck in their own game.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Question here. Did I read this? Did I get this now? So Mary, you asked early on, when did this reincarnation, the forced reincarnation bit start?
Yeah.
So did we just read that it actually really only just started with the timeline wars, 480?
That's what it
Yes.
sounds like.
Yes.
Because before
Yeah.
it was all about constant graduation, migration, re-immigration.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sounds
It's
like.
480,000 years ago, and that's when it was in Lemuria.
So it is
Yeah.
it is an anarchy business then.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
How they trapped us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
Do you know where that is on the document, Martina? Do you just know the number of that by any chance? If you don't, it doesn't matter. I'll go back and I'll find it.
2211.
2211, okay.
2211. So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Go.
What is the best way? Because what I want to do is we want to get all the questions together, and we don't have that much time now. So any questions that come up from this transcript one, can we do a post in Earth Nouveau? Maybe just a post, and everyone adds their questions. Is that the best way of doing it, or is it better?
Yeah.
Document? No, it's better, huh? Just go
Yeah.
into that post. It will be questions. We're just going to throw it out. It will be questions for first transcript, and anything that's come up for you, even if we have already covered it, let's make a full list of questions for transcript one.
And everybody puts
Yeah.
in their own one. Is that that's very interactive,
Let's
too.
do that. Then we
Yeah.
have that, we have a summary of that. And then the other
Yeah.
thing is to work with those times and dates of events. When you have some, we can do another one of those posts in Earth Nouveau, events, right? And
Yes.
put their stuff. Would you like to do that?
Yeah.
Yes,
I'll tell you what else,
yes.
Martina. Maybe if you could have a word with Andrew and just ask him just to take a peek on Facebook once in a while at what we're posting. And if we can put some questions in the hub, he might find himself having 5 minutes to just, clarify something for us.
That's the plan. We have that plan, and that's why we need to have proper questions.
Yes.
So that he can say, fuck that, yes, 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 no, yes, yes. Yeah. You know what I
Yeah.
Now, we all know that the answer he'll put will bring up more questions for us.
and that's okay. That's good, right?
Yeah.
Cool too. Yeah.
Just for us, speaking for myself here, just for me, finding the right questions is already, creating more clarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the
Totally.
trick with Andrew anyway. It's all about the questions.
It
Yeah.
is. It
I'll
is.
I'll throw that out in Earth Nouveau, and then everyone is invited to participate. Thank you.
Fabulous. And should we do something totally different next week? What's the view?
You can take us
Have
through
a
one of your
break
beautiful
from this.
meditations, Laura.
Sorry, darling.
Do one of your lovely meditations. Enjoy them ancestral ones.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
we
handing
can
it
do
back to you
something totally different, something a bit on the ceremonial work sort of side again to get us all grounded again.
Yeah.
If that's your request, let me know in the Earth Nouveau Hub. I think Mary's doing next week anyway.
Am I?
I've just volunteered you,
Yeah,
Mary.
she's just volunteered me. Andrew was talking yesterday or the day before yesterday, I think it was, Martina, with you about the colours and how the colours were related to the red and the blue road of time. And I don't know enough about it, but I thought it would be a really interesting one to explore, you know, like the red road colour connected to the root chakra, the colour, the base chakra, you know, and as we go up, and he talked about purple as being the middle colour. You know, and purple in the auric system it donates a person who is very much, you know, their own person, and it shows a certain level of growth if there's a lot of purple in the system. If I can find something on that, I'll do it, but I don't know if I can. I used to have a book on colors and how it related to the chakras and to the different kind of patterns of our life, but I'm not sure if I can find it. I did leave for it after yesterday.
Mary, there's one thing that he does do, doesn't he? He does a lot of these meditations where you do the different coloured DNA helix coming up and down.
He does.
And I use those as a part of my regular process, and I find them really useful tools. I mean, there's a couple of different ways and colours of doing it, isn't there? Maybe we could do something like that together.
That would be lovely, actually. And do you know what that is? It's very grounding, because you can take it up and you can take it down.
Yeah.
So it's very grounding, bringing the helix up and down.
There's one that does it's red and white, and that's to do with light body activation. And then there's the other one which is the green comes down and you see it going through all of the chakra points, and then it turns red when it hits the base and then comes back up again, and then all aura turns red. I find that one extremely powerful. Would you like to do something on that, Matty? Because I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind leading a meditation. We can do a couple. I can take you through one that I do where we connect to the cranial sacral pulse and everything, and put it all in together.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just say that, in my opinion, you know a lot about color, because what is behind me, guys, is actually a painting that Mary did, and I did tell her today what's coming up for me is the red wolf, and I think you know a lot more about color than you think you knew. Well, I printed out 2 of your paintings, which I told you, and it's interesting that you said that about color, because in my perception, you know much more than you think you do, and it's quite interesting that you matched that today. It's just there. I just printed them out, and it's creating a lot with regards to what happened last week. And like you say, you wanted the color, and I thought, oh no, she knows much more about that than can you see that?
Thank you for that, Andrea.
Sorry?
So we've got a topic of colours.
Yes, I think
yeah.
The master.
Anything? Does anybody want to bring anything to the Zoom next week on colours? What do you think, Martina?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap it up there.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for coming on, contributing. It's quite hard going. I feel absolutely exhausted.
It is, isn't it? Yes. Yeah.
The material's a lot, isn't it? So
yeah.
We'll do something therapeutic next week. Yeah.
Yeah. Colours would be great.
Mary will be amazing next week for sure.
Oh, if you start setting me up, I'll definitely fail.
Thanks.
Thank you. I know you mean well, Andrea. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
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 See you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.